More reactions are trailing the plot for an interim government in the country. This time, the Nigeria Governors Forum, NGF, has condemned the plot, which is being hatched by those the Department of State Services says it's fully aware of. The NGF maintains that other than the recently elected executives waiting to be sworn in on May the 29th this year, it is illegal for any other group of people to work towards taking over power. In a communique signed by the chairman of the forum, Governor Tambuwal of Sokoto State, the NGF wondered why the DSS would take to the media over such matter, adding that issuing statements without arrests is akin to heating up the polity and causing unwarranted tension in the country. It asked the DSS to do its job by immediately arresting and prosecuting all those involved in the plot as a matter of urgency, while vowing to do all it can to defend the country's democracy, as the forum will not support any unconstitutional regime change. And for the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, the call for the installation of an interim government is tantamount to a coup plot and should be treated as such. IPAC is urging the country's intelligence service to name, arrest and prosecute those it says are behind the plot. The Council's national chairman, Mr. Yobe, who was speaking after IPAC's Emergency General Assembly meeting in Abuja, maintains that dealing with the culprits in accordance with the law of the land will serve as a deterrent to others.
The Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, condemns in strong terms the call and plot to install an interim government in Nigeria. It is a civilian coup, treason, absolutely unconstitutional, undemocratic, and unacceptable. IPAC rejects any attempt to scuttle, subvert, and truncate the nation's emerging democracy by reactionary and retrogressive forces. It is in an attempt to overheat the polity, cause confusion, political upheavals, impasse, and quagmire, as was the case in the infamous annulment of the June 12, 1993 presidential election that necessitated the hasty setup of an interim government by General Ibrahim Babangida, which was headed by Chief Ernest Shonaka in August 1993. Council notes the statement by the Department of State Service, DSS, that it has uncovered a plot by some persons to violently disrupt the nation's peace and install an interim government. Council demands that the country's intelligence service should name the plotters, arrest and prosecute them in accordance with the law of the land to serve as a deterrent to others who would resort to self-help to achieve their selfish political ambitions.
And to political stories now. Crisis appears to be brewing in the Labour Party following the suspension of its national chairman, Mr. Julius Abure, by his ward executive council in Arue Esan North local government area of Edo State over alleged infraction of the constitution of the party. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, the chairman of the ward, Mr. Martins Osigbeme, claims that the suspension is predicated on anti-party activities traceable to Mr. Abure as the national chairman of the party. He's also accused of illegally suspending members of the party's National Working Committee without the approval of the National Executive Committee of the party.
With the Labour Party World Executive in Watiri, Arwe, in Esan West, in Esan North, East Local Government of Edo State, do hereby suspend by Mr. Julius Ojanose indefinitely as the National Chairman of Labour Party, LP, for the following reasons, pending the determination of the numerous petitions and cases against him in court, and ongoing police investigation with warrant of arrest for criminality and gross violation of the Labour Party Constitution 2019 as amended. Abure indulges in gross anti-party activities with the opposition, APC and PDP, that led to the failure of the Labour Party in the 2023 presidential election and some national and state elections through unlawful association and proclamations against Labour Party candidates.
Meanwhile, the National Secretary of the Labour Party, Mr. Farouk Ibrahim, says the purported suspension of its national chairman is not in line with the constitution of its party and is therefore null and void. Mr. Farouk told Channels Television that the individuals behind the move are unknown and are clearly not members of the party, as Article 17, subsection 1 of the party is clear about how the national chairman can be disciplined or suspended. He believes that there are some people in opposing parties that are out to destabilize the party because of its rising profile and acceptability to Nigerians.
Members of the state and local government, they can only take disciplinary action and so other measures that affect members of the local government. So also the state level. And at the national level, the constitution, our constitution, Article 17, removal from office and other disciplinary measures. Article 17(1) clearly states, and I read, the national chairman of the party may be suspended or removed from office on a vote of no confidence passed by at least 2/3 majority at a national convention convened solely for the consideration only of such motion. We know the indices that we know all these miscreants that are supporting or sponsoring this just to cause chaos. They are being sponsored by opposition political parties, and we know and we have facts. After all, we'll do our due diligence, we'll do our checks. All these members that have signed the petitions or they have signed this, so-called and unfortunate, suspension of our national chairman are not members of the party. We've gone through our data, we didn't find any name among them.
Away from the Labour Party, the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, in the March 18th governorship election in Rivers State, Toyin Cole, today stormed the head office of INEC in Port Harcourt, demanding the release of the certified true copies of the election results. Mr. Cole, who was at the INEC office in company of the APC State's legal advisor, DK Ihaichukwu, and some party members, condemned the failure of INEC in the state to release the documents almost 2 weeks after the governorship and House of Assembly elections. He told journalists that despite the applications and court injunctions mandating INEC to release the documents, the commission has failed to do so.
We've come to INEC to express our deep frustration at what is going on. Essentially, we are time-bound. We have 21 days from the time that the elections were declared to file. Some of our House of Assembly candidates had their declaration on the 18th, on the day of election. 2 weeks have gone. We've written, we've put in for documents, we've required for INEC to release CTC documents. 2 weeks, nothing. They've not released one single CTC document. And we have to prepare a brief. We have to go to court. We have to prepare for tribunals. We have gotten court orders. They've been ignored. It tells me that something is going on. I don't know what it is, and I don't want to believe the worst in INEC. I believe that at this particular point in time, the onus is on INEC as an independent regulator, an independent administrator of elections. To be fair, give us what we need so that we can go to court. We've come here on Friday. Unfortunately, there's nobody in the office. I've spoken to the rec, and he has promised that Monday something will happen. So we'll be back on Monday. And when we come on Monday, we expect that we will collect and leave INEC with all the documents.
And to neighbouring Bayelsa, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva, has formally resigned his position as Minister in the Federal Cabinet. In a letter he sent to the President through the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Silva informed President Muhammadu Buhari that he is interested in contesting the election for the position of Governor of Bayelsa State and in participating in the upcoming party primaries of the APC. According to him, his resignation is in line with the extant regulations and policies of civil service and will hand over to the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum Resources, pending the appointment of a new Minister of State by the President. And as winners, the Lagos State Police Command says that over 50 security-related incidents were recorded during the presidential and governorship elections in the state. Speaking during the inaugural meeting with strategic commanders, divisional crime managers of the command, the State Commissioner of Police, Idowu Owohunwa, explains that all suspects have been scrutinized and charged appropriately. He adds that the command is re-strategizing on traditional policing functions to stem the spate of crime in the state.
The police recorded a combined total of 54 major incidents across all the 13,325 polling units in the state, while a total of 45 suspects were arrested during the 2 electoral engagements. If you view these statistics against the spread of the polling units, what this translates to is that we witnessed violence in less than 1% of the polling units across the states. This cannot in any way be defined as widespread violence as being fraudulently projected in the social media. A total of 45 suspects were also arrested during the 2 electoral engagements. 2,870 permanent voters' cards were recovered in the course of police election security operations from various electoral offenders. Other items recovered include 7 weapons, including 2 firearms, and 28 snatched ballot boxes, 1 beavers machine, and 1 POS machine being deployed for votes buying. Out of the cases under investigation, it is also on record that Lagos State was the first command to conclude the investigation of the 4 sets of 14 electoral offences and promptly processed 8 to INEC for prosecution in line with the Electoral Acts and the directives of the Inspector General of Police, while others involving unlawful possession of firearms and sundry criminal acts were charged to court by the police directly.
In part 2, after the break, INEC presents certificates of return to last batch of winners in the March 18th governorship and state houses of assembly elections in various states. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. More condemnations trail the call for interim national government. The Nigeria Governors Forum asked the DSS to arrest and prosecute culprits immediately as the Inter-Party Advisory Council describes the plot as a coup. ESCO members of the Arue Ward of the Labour Party in Edo State suspend the party's national chairman, Julius Abure, over alleged anti-party activities. LP leadership says action is illegal. Court of Appeal in Sokoto sentences 2 Chinese nationals to 6 years imprisonment for money laundering and attempted bribery to the tune of 15 million naira. Donald Trump has become the first former U.S. president to face criminal charges over payments made to an adult film star, Stormy Daniels, that is, just before the 2016 presidential election. As winners in the 2023 governorship election receive their certificate of return, those who lost in the contest are also getting set to seek legal redress. One of them is the PDP governorship candidate in Ogun State, Mr. Ladi Adibutu, who has asked his supporters to remain calm and resolute as the party challenges the outcome of the exercise at the tribunal. He made the call in Abeokuta, the state capital, during a meeting with some of his supporters and members of the Conference of Political Parties in the state. The PDP candidate is alleging fraud and manipulation in the poll, which saw the incumbent governor, Dapo Abiodun, emerging victorious.
The only thing I will not beg you, I beg you, dear God, keep faith and continue to face them within the ambit of the law. it is the prescribed way we will seek redress in the courts. We recognize that everything that happened in these elections we must contest, because it was subversion of our democracy. If we fail to contest this, we are killing this nation. We must protect our institutions. We must protect our institutions. Let us protect INEC. I want to protect INEC because it's the Nigerian institution. Let us take out the bad ones.
And for the winners in that election, Mark Yusuf has more. Hi, Mark. Where?
Hello, Millicent. It's good to see you. Well, we're off to the northern part of the country, where the governors-elect of Bauchi, Niger, Gombe, Kaduna, Zamfara, and Jigawa states, alongside their deputies, have been issued certificates of return by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The certificates were also presented to the members-elect of the State Houses of Assembly by the INEC National Commissioners in charge of the various states. Some of the incoming state chief executives who spoke to journalists at the event pledged to ensure that the people of their states enjoy the dividends of democracy.
Following the governorship and state houses of assembly elections held on the 18th of March 2023, more winners have now received their certificates of return. In the northwest, the governors-elect of Kaduna, Jigawa, and Zamfara states were issued certificates of return by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. They assured the people they will run an inclusive government where every part of the state will be given equal opportunities in terms of appointments and infrastructure, irrespective of how they voted during the election.
Seek the support and cooperation of all citizens of Kaduna State as we vigorously implement our 7-point agenda. Our sustained program will focus on safety and security.
Our major concern, as you know, is in the area of security, without which there will be no meaningful development in the state. And therefore, security will be given very, very top priority. If we're able to achieve that, the next thing is in the area of education.
I also want to use this opportunity to call on the people of Jigawa State who gave us this mandate, that we have accepted this mandate to serve them for the next 4 years, inshallah, and we call on them that they should be watchful on whatever we are doing.
In the North Central, Niger State Governor-elect Umar Bago, his deputy, and members-elect of State House of Assembly received their certificates of return. Mr. Bago explained that his administration will prioritize security, welfare, social amenities, infrastructure, and economic growth.
We shall prioritize education for comprehensive development, promote easy access to quality health care, and incentivize the largest sector in our great economy, agriculture.
In the northeast region, the governors of Bauchi and Gombe states who faced tough re-election battles were also presented their certificates of return.
This certificate that we received today is a license for us to go all out, to do more, so that we deliver on the mandate.
Election and electioneering are over. It is time for good governance. We have no qualms or malice against anybody, even those who competed with us.
In Kogi State, where governorship elections were not held, the 25 members of the State House of Assembly got their certificate of return as the State Resident Electoral Commissioner urged all to support INEC to ensure a successful conduct of the Kogi governorship election scheduled to hold in November this year.
In Cross River State, south of the country, the governor-elect, Mr. Basi Otu, and members-elect of the State House of Assembly have also received their certificates of return from INEC at its headquarters in Calabar, the state capital. Mr. Otu promised to run an all-inclusive government to reposition the state for more development.
Our approach is going to be multi-sectoral, and the dividends will be felt, in fact, even in the short terms, as soon as we assume power. We've discovered that the youth and the women are very active and strong. We want them to take their right of place as far as the society is concerned. So I believe that in making sure that the women are strengthened, empowered, and then the youths are given the opportunity to grow to their fullest potential.
With the governors-elect receiving their certificates of return from the Independent National Electoral Commission and May the 29th handover imminent, the business of governance is about to start in earnest. Meanwhile, citizens have continued to bear their minds with regards to the expectations of the incoming administrations. Tonight, we turn our attention to the South-South region of the country.
In Calabar, the Cross River State capital, Senator Basi Otu of the APC is the governor-elect. He's taken over from Professor Ben Ayade, also of the APC, and the sentiment in the state capital are that there should be more transparency in the budgeting process of the government.
He should consider a citizen budgeting process. As I said, we do not need geniuses again. We don't need a genius of a governor. We don't need a genius of a House of Assembly. We need a genius of the people because we are in a democracy.
He also wants the incoming administration to deal with poor road infrastructure, light up the city, and handle multiple taxation for businesses to thrive.
First, if you look at the road network in the state capital and in other parts of the state, he should just fix it.
Elsewhere in Delta State, Sheriff Oborowori of the People's Democratic Party is the incoming governor. He has promised the Delta people that he will consolidate on the work of his predecessor to ensure development for all residents.
Concentrate on the good work of the former governor. In my more agenda, I've said that there will be meaningful development. There will be opportunity for the youth, not just only the youth, for Deltans. And I want to be governor for all Deltans.
Meanwhile, the people of the state have high expectations on what the new administration should focus on. And high on the list are job creation, infrastructural development, and addressing youth restiveness.
It should focus more on infrastructure. And the challenges that the youth have today, they have not been given opportunity in the government in terms of one office or the other.
He has been in the system for long, being a Speaker of the House for over 6 years plus now. I think he's been able to understand the states, and we do more for Delta, just like what His Excellency Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa has been doing. He will continue from where he will stop come May 29.
Over to Port Harcourt, the Garden City capital of River State, where the erstwhile Accountant General of the state, Siminalayi Fubara, and his deputy, Ngozi Odu, have received their certificates of return as incoming governor and deputy governor of the state, taken over from the incumbent Nyesom Wike and Opalibo Harry Banigo. The people of the state are setting an agenda for the incoming governor. A lecturer at the Elechi Amadi Polytechnic believes that power generation and rail transportation should be top on their agenda.
In River State, for instance, we are seeing that they're going to have an enlarged scope, a broader work space, much more than the other predecessors. The reason is because of the act that Mr. President signed weeks back, talking about the issue of power.
Others want him to tackle human capital development, education, and agriculture.
It's not really right that we look into one side of development. It's supposed to be all-encompassing. So we expect him to do more of education.
Even the ruling party in the state is not left out in voicing their needs, as the party's vice chairman insists that infrastructure must go hand in glove with educational reforms.
Let him continue with infrastructure, because infrastructure is key to development. He should look at education, because if you don't educate the people and you put that on the infrastructure you want to put, I don't think it will be useful.
The incoming administrations in the South-South region clearly have their work cut out for them. Whether or not they can meet the yearnings and aspirations of the people will be revealed in due time.
To legal matters, the Court of Appeal in Sokoto has sentenced 2 Chinese nationals to 6 years imprisonment for fraud. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, had arraigned the convicts before a federal high court in Sokoto on a 3-count charge bordering on conspiracy, money laundering, and attempted bribery to the tune of 50 million naira. The trial court had struck out the charges against the defendants, but delivering judgments in the appeal filed by the EFCC, the Court of Appeal, led by Abubakar Talba, found the respondents guilty of 2 of the 3 counts. According to the judge, the respondents are charged with conspiracy and making a cash payment in excess of the threshold provided by the Money Laundering Prohibition Act 2011, as amended in 2012, to Abdullahi Lawal, then zonal head of EFCC Sokoto, which was established beyond reasonable doubt before the lower court. But surprisingly, the trial judge somersaulted in his judgment and recanted. Justice Talba held that the EFCC was able to prove the charges beyond reasonable doubt. And away from the court, the president has inaugurated the governing board of the Nigeria Police Academy Council to ensure a reformed, professional, and highly motivated police force. The Minister of Police Affairs, Mohammed Dingyadi, who represented President Muhammadu Buhari, challenged members to bring their wealth of knowledge and experience to bear in the discharge of their duties. The board is saddled with the responsibility of exercising control and supervising the policies, finances, and properties of the academy, amongst other responsibilities.
I have no doubt that your appointment is based on merit and your commendable track records. I'm therefore confident that given your track records of service and the clarity of person that are here on this council, you would bring to bear your wealth of experience and the agility in the realization of your social responsibility of re-engineering a world-class standard policing system in Nigeria. I now have the honor and to request members of the Nigeria Governing Council to please rise. As the Minister of Police Affairs, it is my singular honor to inaugurate the Governing Board of Nigerian Police Academy. I congratulate all of you, and God bless you, and bless our dear country.
The Katsina State Governor-elect, Umaru Rada, says he is determined to deploy technology to address terrorism as well as make deserted farmlands accessible for cultivation when he assumes office. In a chat with State House correspondents after meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari to present his certificate of return, the governor-elect promised to restore farming activities as a mainstay of the state's economy. He was led to the president's office by incumbent governor of Katsina State, Aminu Masari.
I have said it over and over that security is our first priority. This is what we are going to give much attention because it is only when you have peace and security that you can be able to go to the farm, go to school, go to hospital, and even the market. So security is very cardinal in the economic development of any society. And agriculture is one of the major areas of employment in our state, and it's a major area of livelihood to our people. So we must provide security to our people, and we promise to involve the locals, and we promise to involve use of technology in tackling the security issues in my state. The President has always been advocating for transparency and accountability in government, and he has always urged us to be fair to Almighty God in discharging our responsibility.
And that's all from our Abuja studios. It's back now to you, Millicent.
Thanks, Mark Ware. Two issues of media management. The Nigerian media has concluded plans to inaugurate a 9-member board of the National Media Complaints Commission, NMCC, on Monday, April 3rd, 2023. A statement by the president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, Malam Kabiru Yusuf, explains that the launch is to strengthen public confidence in the media as a credible barometer of public opinion. Members of the commission are drawn from the media, the bar, the academia and civil society, and they include former Managing Director, Guardian Newspaper, Mr. Emeka Izeze, Chairman, former President of the Nigeria Bar Association, Mr. Abubakar Mahmood, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics, Paul, University, Awka, Anambra State, Professor Chinyere Stella Okuna. Others are Mr. Lanre Idowu, Founder, Diamond Award for Media Excellence, and a broadcaster, Eugenia Abu. Mr. Malam Yusuf describes the inauguration as a major step by the industry to strengthen public confidence in the media through prompt resolution of issues bordering on ethical breaches in media content, in addition to serving as an independent forum for resolving complaints about the press quickly. And the Lagos State government has announced that the state is expected to experience an above-normal rainfall. This is according to the State Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Mr. Tunji Bello, who was speaking on the 2023 seasonal climate predictions and its socio-economic implications for Lagos. He gave the assurances that flood control measures are being stepped up to contain the impact of imminent rainfall.
This year's prediction said Lagos will experience an average to slightly above average rainfall amounts and season length. However, rainfall from neighboring Ogun, Oyo, and Osun states coming to the state will result in increasing water levels, which will continue to be monitored. The rainy season is expected to start in the first week of April. In fact, beginning from Saturday, which is the 1st of April, and cease in the first week of December, while the average annual rainfall amount predicted is 1,936.2 millimeters. This amount is greater than the long-term average of 1,721.48 mm for the state over the last 10 years. Specifically, Ikeja is expected to have an onset date of 3rd of April with cessation date of 2nd of December. An annual amount of 1,900 mm with an annual amount of 1,900 mm. Badagry is expected to have a rainfall onset date of 1st of April, which is Saturday, with cessation date of 4th of December. On the other hand, Ikorodu is expected to have a rainfall onset date of 3rd of April, with cessation date of 2nd of December, with an annual amount of 1,903 mm. Lagos Island is expected to have a rainfall onset of 2nd of April, with cessation date of 3rd of December, while Ekpe is expected to have a rainfall onset date of 1st of April, with cessation date of 3rd of December also. Thus, Lagos State is expected to experience above average rainfall, and the same is true of neighboring Ogun State. It should be noted that the state has deployed its own network of weather stations, as well as river gauge stations, to monitor the weather in our state, as well as increase our preparedness for weather and flood-related issues.
Staying with the impact of heavy rainfall in Bayelsa State, the state government continues to grapple with the damage on infrastructure resulting from last year's flooding, with the reconstruction of the roads affected. The roadwork is to end the hardship that residents of Bayelsa State have been experiencing as a result of the devastating flood in 2022.
An aerial view of how a flood disaster which occurred in 2022 submerged communities in Bayelsa State. The 2022 flood left a trail of damaged roads which had increased the hardship experienced by the people, even long after the flood dried up. To ensure that the incident doesn't recur, the Bayelsa State government embarks on an extensive reconstruction of damaged roads across the state.
A few decisions were taken at the State Executive Council
approval was granted. Contracts have been awarded, and so there is a need for us to come out to see exactly what the contractors are doing on ground. Here we are now on Amasoma Road. We have visited 3 locations. This is the 3rd point where you see that work is also ongoing. And we believe that all the areas we have visited, we are believing strongly that work will be completed by July this year latest.
The government is not just fixing the roads damaged by the flood, it is also constructing new roads to connect all riverine local government areas to the state capital. It's not just the roads, as the government is also building a labor house for the members of the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress.
We are doing this because, like we always want to maintain, Bayelsa State was created in 1996. It's over 20 years now, and it is sad that with what we contribute to the federation, there are still local governments that are not connected by a road network. And as a responsible and responsive government, we feel that that is unacceptable. And since it is unacceptable, what do? We must link up these communities with roads. It's something we as a government want to do, and it's for the good of the people, and we'll continue to do those roads, and we won't stop until we get it done and achieved.
The impact of the 2022 flood on residents in Bayelsa State resulted in a humanitarian crisis, with thousands either displaced or affected by the flood. The state government's rehabilitation of the roads as part of its post-flood mitigation plan is crucial to ensure those affected do not have the same experience next season.
Meanwhile, the National Emergency Management Agency, in collaboration with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, have donated food baskets to 2,250 households affected by flooding and Boko Haram insurgency in Yobe State. At the presentation to the beneficiaries of Maymala community, a satellite village in Damaturu, the state capital, the government pledged fair distribution of the items to the most vulnerable persons.
These are shanties in Maymala village, a satellite community in Damaturu, the Yobe state capital. Housed within are internally displaced persons affected by the 2022 flood disaster and the Boko Haram insurgency. And to help alleviate their suffering, as well as other vulnerable persons in the state, the National Emergency Management Agency is handing over 2,250 food baskets to the state, starting with Maymala village.
We are here to flag off the distribution of relief food items donated by our partners from the Royal Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, specifically from King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center, KS Relief. The National Emergency Management Agency has been collaborating with the center in distribution of relief assistance to our people that have been impacted by natural and human-induced disasters.
The state government pledges fair distribution of the items to the most vulnerable persons across the affected communities.
His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Yobe State, Horame Malabuni, is welcoming you to Yobe State and has assured King Salman Relief Center and NEMA that the food basket targeting 2,250 households containing 25 kg of rice, 25 kg of beans, and a condiment with 2 vegetable oil, tomato paste, seasoning, masa flour, and salt will reach the beneficiary as targeted and profiled earlier.
While the beneficiaries expressed their gratitude for the aid, they thanked the Yobe and Saudi governments for coming to their aid during their fasting period. The village head also solicits for the construction of a primary school and a dispensary in the settlement.
What I want in this settlement is a school, dispensary, and completion of our mosque, which is at lintel level, because we observe our prayers under the sun.
We are grateful for the provision of food baskets. We will not sell them, but use them in our homes.
The food donation to the vulnerable persons affected by natural disasters and insurgency will no doubt assist the IDPs, especially as the rainy season sets in.
And the Vice President, Professor Yobe Osinbajo, has directed all government agencies involved in the implementation of the work of the Presidential Committee on the Repatriation, Return and Resettlement of Displaced Persons in the Northeast to harmonize purchases and distributions made on behalf of the committee. Professor Osinbajo, who is the chairman of the committee, gave the directive at the committee meeting, which was held at the State House, Abuja. Speaking to State House correspondents after the meeting, the Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum expressed hopes that released funds will ensure the success of the fourth phase of the repatriation effort.
A few months ago, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has established a committee for the repatriation, return and resettlement of IDPs that are living in the Republic of Chad, Cameroon and Niger to Nigeria. Based on the recommendation of the chairman of this committee, which is the vice president, the sum of 15 billion naira has been released to the committee. We are here to discuss modalities of implementation. Who does what? So far, so good. A lot has been discussed. Many items will be procured so that the repatriation exercise will take place with immediate effect. More than about 300,000 were repatriated. But under this phase, we are yet to begin the process. Yes, this is the first phase of the repatriation exercise we shall embark on very soon. Guidelines were provided to respective agencies that are to handle this matter. Modalities means what should be given to the individuals in terms of food and non-food items, what type of houses shall we build, what is the transportation medium, what is the minimum threshold required to return people from the neighboring countries to Nigeria. These are some of the issues that have been discussed according to the international best practices.
Time for business news now. Here's Larry Williams.
Thanks, Millicent. In business news, the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority says its total assets grew to 1.02 trillion at the close of the financial year, which ended December 31st, 2022. In its 2022 full-year audited results, the investment institution said the asset growth indicated a 10.5% increase from the 919.73 billion now recorded in 2021. Meanwhile, the institution noted its total comprehensive income stood at 96.96 billion naira in 2022, representing a decline of 34% compared to 147 billion naira in 2021. The NSIA attributed the decline to strong macroeconomic headwinds. And the World Bank Group's Board of Executive Directors announced that AJ Banga is the only nominee for the position of the next president of the bank. Mr. AJ Banga was born in India, is a naturalized U.S. citizen, is a former Mastercard Inc. chief and currently serves as vice chairman at General Atlantic. If confirmed, Mr. Banga will become the first ever Indian American to head either of the two top international financial institutions, which include the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And New York cocoa futures on the Intercontinental Exchange rose to the highest level in more than 2 years today. The May New York cocoa CCC1 was up 0.2% at $2,924 a ton after peaking at $2,963 for the highest front-month price since November 2020. Dealers said the market was supported by tight supplies, with port arrivals and top grower Ivory Coast running behind last season's pace. And Kenya's inflation for March held steady at 9.2%, helped by a drop in prices of onions and tomatoes after rains towards the end of the month. Data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics shows that while cooking oil also recorded a drop in price, overall food costs price rose by 13.6% this month compared to March 2022. Earlier in the week, the Central Bank of Kenya increased its lending rate to 9.5% from 8.75%, citing sustained inflationary pressures and the elevated global risk and their potential impact on the domestic economy. And the bears dominate trade at the NGX today with a negative close for the last trading day of the week. And John McQuarrie has the details.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the stock market report. Well, expectations were dashed at the close of trade today, seeing that the NGX that was sustaining a green market at 0.82% at intro, they actually dropped at the close of trade, and we see it down at 0.33%, even though we still have the 54,000 there and still have the 29 trillion right there. And this, of course, has made the bear really, really happy. Well, this happened in spite of the most capitalized stock, Airtel Africa, gaining 54 naira today. A closer look takes us to industrial goods. There we have it, 3.59% down. And this happened towards the end of close of trade today. Banking is up thanks to Fidelity, GTCO, and all those big guys that brought it up 1.61%. Consumer goods are slightly up 0.15%. A look at the activity charts now shows more red than green, a change from what we had yesterday, especially when you look at the volume. Volume went from more than 900 million there to 557 million. Well, it ends in the red, but we'll recover next week. Hopefully, that's the hope of investors. And that's the stock market report. I'm John McQuarrie. It's back to you.
And that's business news. I'm Ladi Williams. It's back to Millicent with the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Laddie. The former president of the United States, Donald Trump, has been indicted by a grand jury over a $130,000 payout to adult film star Stormy Daniels, but the ex-president's legal team described the jury's decision as political persecution. Mr. Trump is expected to appear in court to face the charges and possibly enter a plea in New York, reportedly next week, Tuesday, and he will not be put in handcuffs when he does. We'll hear Simon Pusey with more on this and other international stories and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Donald Trump has become the first former U.S. president to face criminal charges over payments made to a porn star just before the 2016 presidential election. The Office of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who has been pursuing the investigation, confirmed that it had contacted Mr. Trump's attorney to coordinate his surrender. The details of the case against him have not yet been released, but a grand jury has voted to indict him after investigating a £130,000 payout to Stormy Daniels in an attempt to buy her silence over an alleged affair. Mr. Trump denies wrongdoing. He is the first serving or former US president to face a criminal charge. At least 35 people have been killed after falling into a well while offering prayers at a temple in the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. 14 others have been rescued and one person is still missing in the accident that took place in Indore city. Police said the victims were standing on a concrete slab over the well when it collapsed under their weight. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he was extremely pained by the mishap. The incident took place during a prayer ceremony on the occasion of Hindu festival of Ram Navami. A large crowd of devotees were standing on the concrete slab covering the well, which collapsed under their weight, plunging dozens of people into the almost 40-foot deep well. Hollywood actress Gwyneth Paltrow has thanked jurors who found her not liable for a 2016 ski crash at a resort in the U.S. state of Utah.
Everything was great, and then I heard something I've never heard at a ski resort, and that was a blood-curdling scream. I can't do it. It was, and then, boom.
Retired optometrist Terry Sanderson said Ms. Paltrow crashed into him, inflicting life-changing injuries. Mr. Sanderson, who is seeking $300,000 in damages, said the verdict was very disappointing. Jurors sided with Ms. Paltrow, who blamed Mr. Sanderson for the accident and countersued him for $1 plus legal fees.
This court is now adjourned. Thank you.
Let my client slip out before?
Yes, everyone remains seated while the parties leave.
As she left, she briefly stopped to speak to Mr. Sanderson. He later said she told him, "I wish you well," and he replied, "Thank you, dear."
Outside, Mr. L.
Lawmakers from the pro-Russia far-right Freedom Party have walked out of the lower house of Austria's parliament during a speech by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky addressed the chamber via video link on the 400th day of the war in Ukraine, thanking Austria for its humanitarian aid and help with projects such as clearing landmines. But far-right Freedom Party members walked out of the chamber, leaving small placards on their desks featuring the party logo and either Space for Neutrality or Space for Peace written on them. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has met Chinese President Xi Jinping, where he has stressed that it will be up to Ukraine to decide on the foundations of any peace agreement with Russia. It comes after Xi, who is trying to position himself as a mediator in the war between Russia and Ukraine, wrapped up a symbolic two-day trip to Moscow. Sanchez has described China as a top-tier global actor and thanked Xi for the invitation to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Spain and China's diplomatic relations. More than 120 wildfires are currently raging in Spain's northern Asturias region. Most of them started on purpose by arsonists as temperatures soared to record highs. The blazes came on top of another wildfire still burning 8 days after it started in woodlands in the eastern Valencia region, and yet another that has swept through 1,100 hectares of land in Galicia in the northwest. And Britain's King Charles and Queen Consort Camilla have boarded a train for Hamburg for the last leg of their 3-day state visit to Germany. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier accompanied the royals on the 2-hour fast train trip to the northern port city, where visits to World War II memorials, City Hall and Harbour were on the agenda. Charles had been due to travel first to France, but cancelled that part of the tour due to violent social unrest there. Charles has visited Germany on more than 40 occasions as Prince, including 28 previous official visits. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. Anthony Joshua will head into Saturday's night fight with Jermaine Franklin at a career heaviest. Joshua, who suffered his second successive defeat to Usyk in August 2022, weighed in at 255.4 pounds this afternoon. The former champion will be hoping his added weight will help him make a statement and register his first win since against Kuropulev in December 2020. Meanwhile, Franklin dropped 23 pounds from his points defeat to Dillian White and looked visibly leaner. He tipped the scales at just over 234 pounds. The Nigeria Cricket Federation has formally signed a contract with top players in the male and female national teams. At the ceremony, the president of the federation, Uyi Akpata, said the move was necessary to stabilize and give players some measure of incentives. The contract is on 3 levels. That's professional players, aspiring professionals, and young players who are in school. A total of 18 players are on this first phase of the contract, while the second phase will have 14 players by 1st of July this year. In football, the Nigerian Football Federation Reconciliation Committee has called on rival players' union to settle lingering issues which has hampered the smooth running and progress of the bodies. A 5-man committee headed by Deputy Governor of Edo State, Philip Shuaibu, was recently inaugurated by the NFF board to look into the misunderstanding between both unions. Shuaibu urged them to be united and act in good faith to address challenges facing both retired and active football players. It's game, set, and match as well on Sports News, but here's Millicent with the wrap of the news at 10. Thank you for watching. I'm Victor Matthias.
Thank you, Victor. And the main news again. The Nigeria Governors Forum today told us the DSS to immediately arrest and prosecute culprits calling for the formation of interim national government, just as the Inter-Party Advisory Council described the plot as a coup. That's your news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.